Welcome to the Better Together podcast, where we look for ways we can work together to advance the gospel of Jesus Christ. Today we have Dr. Brad Ransom with Free Will Baptist North American Ministries, and among other things, one of his primary positions is to be the Chief Training Officer for NAM. So, Dr. Ransom, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
So NAM operates several boot camps, and I'm sure people out there are listening saying, hey, what's this one, or this one's going to that one, like church planters and so forth. Why don't we give a brief description about the boot camps that are available through NAM and what regular pastors, if you will, could come and participate in?
Okay. So we do have a couple of different trainings that we call boot camps. So the main one that we've kind of traditionally done for years is our church planter boot camp. So when we have a new church planter that comes through NAM, they go through a boot camp training. That is specifically for church planters. We bring them here to our office in Antioch, Tennessee for 4 days of pretty intense training. But that's, like I said, for our church planters. And then a few years ago, when we started partnering with the executive office, with Refresh and different things, we started doing pastors' boot camps. And we do those here at the office as well. But those are a 2-day training. We do them traditionally on Monday and Tuesday. And they are training specifically for pastors of local churches. And so we deal with some things a little bit different than we would deal with in church planter boot camp. And so it's really, like I said, specifically designed for pastors. And we do those a couple of times a year. We usually do it in May and October, and we do limit that to a certain number of pastors so that we can keep that into a smaller setting around some tables kind of training. So that's our pastors boot camp, 2-day training here in our office in Antioch. And then we also just recently have been talking about doing some mini boot camps on the road. And so you and I, Dr. Moody, are going to be going to a couple of places in the coming months to do some on-the-road mini boot camps. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of the quick difference between all the different boot camps.
That's good. So first off, let's talk about the boot camp that a pastor can come here. No cost for that, right?
Right, totally free. The only thing that they have to do is get here, and then generally 1 or 2 nights in a hotel, depending on the distance they have to travel.
So there's no registration fee. So they end up eating pretty well. Mm-hmm. Also,
we feed them while they're here. Yeah.
And get to interact with pastors really from all over. Mm. And so that's real quick, that's real intense, and really that's what we would recommend for pastors. We think it's just a good shot in the arm, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Let's give them a little bit on the topics for that particular boot camp.
Yeah. So we have each one is a little bit different because we have some guest speakers come in, different people at different times. So the one that's upcoming in October here in just a couple of months, we're going to be looking at some things specifically geared around leadership and discipleship, which is kind of always our overarching theme, because we just feel like discipleship and leadership are two of the really most important things that pastors could really use some additional training on. But we're going to be talking about how to create a culture for evangelism in your church, of discipleship. We'll be talking about when we face adversity and spiritual warfare in the church, things like that. We'll also be dealing with some things about just some essential elements that pastors need to realize and understand about their church and what it takes to be a healthy church. And then we'll also talk about some other things by some guest speakers, as I said, but that's kind of just a quick look at what we'll be covering. Every boot camp that we've done has been at max because we do limit the number, and we intentionally do that to keep it into a classroom size. And so they do have to call and register and make sure that we know that they're coming.
So now we've got some folks, even though we'll often have people come all the way from California or the Northeast to come to a boot camp, some guys are like, hey, this is just too difficult for us to come across the country or to get to you. So that's where the mini boot camp comes in. So it's a quick, intense, whereas if they were able to come here, it'd be 3 days spread across, so it just kind of like a taste of what they would get in the big boot camp, but it's in your backyard if you're living in California or Kentucky, and no cost on on our end at least for that either. If you get where you're struggling, you're like, who exactly do I contact for what? Just send us an email at questions@nafwb.org and let us know which one you're interested in. Really, there's a lot of opportunities for pastors, and we should also mention associations. Really what's happening in California and Kentucky is maybe a little more in associations. It's kind of the states providing that. But any association or moderator listening in, we would do our best to try to help them out with the mini boot camp, wouldn't we?
Absolutely. It's just a matter of getting it scheduled and getting the times worked out where we can both be there. And so getting those on the calendar is important. So
it's a different day, whereas we used to have to struggle sometimes to get training. Really, when you think about, you mentioned Refresh, what's happening through Refresh, the Rekindle, the boot camps, all of those things, there's something for every church, there's something for every pastor, and associations can take advantage of that as well. Anything else you think we need to share with them before we sign off today?
The registration is free on all of these events, but we do need them to contact us as soon as possible, and so they don't miss the opportunity, because the spots do fill up.
They do.
We just encourage them to call us as soon as possible.
They're very good. So if you're listening in, check that out. You can contact Miss Bethany. You can contact us. We'll make sure you get to the right place, and we'll make sure you're able to get registered. And really, time is pretty critical. Well, thank you for joining us today, my friend.
It's good to be with you.
And we want to thank you all, our listeners. If you know someone that would benefit from this podcast, please share it with them. If you're watching it on social media, please like it. Give us a review. If you can give us a good review wherever you're watching or getting your podcast, because remember, every little thing we do matters. We truly are better when we work together.